It was a dark and stormy night, and she found herself alone in a hotel room. As she lay in bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she were being watched. Suddenly, she heard strange noises coming from the hallway. She tried to ignore them, but they grew louder and more persistent. She got out of bed and opened the door, but there was no one there. She shrugged it off and went back to bed, but the noises continued. As she lay there, she began to feel a cold breeze blowing through the room. She looked around, but all the windows were closed. Suddenly, she heard a voice whispering, "Your name." She sat up in bed, heart racing, and saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed. Its eyes were hollow, and it let out a blood-curdling scream. She tried to run, but the door wouldn't budge. She was trapped, alone with the ghostly figure. She remembered hearing stories about the hotel being haunted, but she never believed them until now. She tried to reason with the ghost, but it wouldn't listen. It seemed to be getting angrier and more violent by the second. Desperate for a way out, she searched the room for anything that could help her. She found an old diary hidden in a drawer, and as she read it, she learned the tragic story of a woman who was murdered in the very room she was staying in. The ghost was her vengeful spirit, seeking revenge on anyone who dared to stay in her room. She knew she had to act fast. She found a way to break the curse that bound the ghost to the room, and as she did, the ghostly figure disappeared. She was safe, but the memory of that night would haunt her forever. She knew that she could never stay in that hotel again, and she warned others to stay away from it too. As she broke the curse, the ghostly figure disappeared, and she were finally able to leave the room. She ran down the hallway, heart racing, and burst into the lobby. The staff looked at her with concern, and she tried to explain what had just happened. They listened patiently, but she could tell they didn't believe her. She decided to leave the hotel immediately, but as she walked towards the exit, she felt a cold breeze blowing through the lobby. She turned around and saw the ghostly figure standing in front of her, its eyes still hollow and its mouth open in a silent scream. She tried to run, but the ghostly figure followed her, its chilling presence filling the entire hotel. She knew she had to find a way to banish the ghost for good. She remembered reading about a ritual that could help her, and she searched the internet for instructions. She found what she were looking for and gathered the necessary items. She returned to the room where she had encountered the ghost and began the ritual. As she chanted the words, she felt a powerful energy building around her. The ghostly figure let out a final scream and disappeared, leaving her alone in the room. She knew that the hotel was no longer haunted, and she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She left the hotel and never looked back, but the memory of that night would stay with her forever. She knew that she had faced her fears and emerged victorious, but she also knew that she would never forget the terror of that dark and stormy night in the haunted hotel. After leaving the haunted hotel, she couldn't shake the feeling that the ghosts were still following her. She tried to put the experience behind her, but she found herself haunted by nightmares and strange occurrences. She knew that she had to do something to banish the ghosts for good. She decided to seek out a paranormal investigator who could help her. She found one who was willing to take on her case, and they agreed to meet with her at the hotel. Together, she performed a series of rituals and cleansings, and she were finally able to banish the ghosts for good. She felt a sense of relief wash over her, knowing that she had finally put the experience behind her. She knew that she would never forget the terror of that dark and stormy night in the haunted hotel, but she also knew that she had faced her fears and emerged victorious. She decided to share her story with others, hoping to warn them of the dangers of staying in haunted hotels. She wrote a blog post about her experience, and it quickly went viral. She received messages from people all over the world who had experienced similar encounters, and she knew that she had made a difference. Years later, she returned to the hotel, but this time it was different. The hotel had been renovated, and it was no longer haunted. She felt a sense of closure, knowing that she had played a part in banishing the ghosts for good. As she left the hotel, She looked back one last time, knowing that she would never forget the terror of that dark and stormy night. But she also knew that she had faced her fears and emerged stronger for it. She knew that she would never forget the lessons she had learned, and she would always be grateful for the experience that had changed her life forever. After the paranormal investigator helped her banish the ghosts, she finally felt like she could move on from the experience. She no longer felt like the ghosts were following her, and she were able to sleep peacefully at night. She continued to share her story with others, hoping to warn them of the dangers of staying in haunted hotels. She wrote articles and blog posts, and she even appeared on a few podcasts. She received messages from people all over the world who had experienced similar encounters, and she knew that she had made a difference. Years passed, and she found herself thinking less and less about the haunted hotel. She had moved on with her life, and she was grateful for the experience that had changed her forever. One day, she received an email from the hotel's new owner. They had read her story and wanted to thank her for sharing it. They told her that they had renovated the hotel and that it was no longer haunted. They invited her to come back and stay for free as a way of making amends for what had happened to her. She were hesitant at first, but she eventually decided to take them up on their offer. She returned to the hotel, and this time it was different. The hotel was beautiful, and there was no trace of the ghost that had haunted her before. As she walked through the lobby, she felt a sense of closure. She knew that she had faced her fears and emerged stronger for it. She knew that she would never forget the terror of that dark and stormy night in the haunted hotel, but she also knew that she had moved on. That night, as she settled into her room, she couldn't help but feel a lingering unease. The memories of the ghostly encounter were etched into her mind, but she assured herself that the hotel was no longer haunted. Yet, as she drifted into sleep, the shadows in the room seemed to dance eerily. Suddenly, she was jolted awake by the sound of the door creaking open. A cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the dim light. Panic set in as she realized that the ghosts had returned. The air became heavy with a chilling presence, and the room seemed to warp into a sinister atmosphere. In the darkness, the ghostly figure materialized at the foot of her bed once again. Its eyes now filled with a malevolent glow fixed upon her. A haunting voice whispered her name, sending shivers down her spine. She felt paralyzed, unable to escape the clutches of the vengeful spirit. With trembling hands, she grasped the artifact and recited an incantation she had never seen before. A blinding light engulfed the room as the ghost let out a deafening wail. The hotel trembled as if rejecting the malevolent force within. When the light subsided, the room was silent. The ghostly figure had vanished, leaving her alone in the now hushed hotel room. As she caught her breath, a chilling certainty settled in. The hotel was cleansed, but the ghosts had not just been confined to its walls. The nightmares persisted, and strange occurrences continued to haunt her. The blog posts and warnings seemed futile as the ghosts became a relentless, omnipresent force in her life. The hotel's malevolent spirits, denied their vengeance within its renovated walls, now sought it beyond. Haunted by the ghosts that had transcended the hotel's confines, she found herself trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The once victorious survivor now wandered through a shadowed existence, forever pursued by the spirits she had tried so desperately to escape. The lessons learned that fateful night were now a haunting reminder, a chilling echo that reverberated through every step she took in her haunted existence.